Social media is constantly running in the background of life. As we just heard in our last segment, it can often have a negative effect on how teens feel about themselves and the world around them. So we thought we'd bring in Gaina Lynn to talk about the effects of social media on them and also how to navigate some of the tools we can use. This is close to home for you today.
Yeah, I was just sharing with you as I walked into the studio today, I often get messages about suicide, depression, suicidal ideation, and I got a text from someone that said that a teenage friend had told her friend that she had already planned it and made her promise not to tell her family, her parents, that she had a plan to take her life. And of course this friend said, I'm going to tell my mom, and then lied just so that she would tell her, and then reported it, and this girl is getting help. But I got the outreach text of, did I miss something and how should I handle it? So I'm so grateful that we are talking about this complex issue. It's so many layers, and so I love that we're tackling the social media.
And you saw those kids, a couple questions I asked them, only one of them would respond. When I asked about social media,
they were all like,
everybody had something to say.
Yes. And you know what, I think, let's be honest, the adults in their lives, we all have social media as well. Most of us are not carrying around a hammer every day, you know, in case we have a nail that we need to hammer in. But social media is a tool that we carry around all the time. And so I think it's really important, if we're going to have this conversation about the teens or the kids in our lives, that it's going to trigger what we're doing as adults.
Okay, why a tool? Why did you call it that, and how do we explain it that way to our kids?
Well, I think the teens that you interviewed were brilliant, and they talked about how it can be effective for sharing maybe what's happening in their life or connecting with people. But it also can be a tool that's damaging, because I don't know how you both are, but if I'm scrolling too much, and I call it hanging out, if I'm hanging out there, I start to feel a change within me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I do. Absolutely.
So it is a tool for good, but it also can be a tool that creates barriers, that creates a false sense of who they are.
You say it's important to acknowledge that this can contribute to anxiety and depression.
Yes, and I think one of the teens you interviewed said that there's this fake sense of, you know, expectation and how everyone else is rocking their life and how they look great and they're getting the best, and they all got, right now everyone's posting about getting into college, right? And so there's this perception that everyone else has things figured out. And it's been shown in research, there's a dopamine hit every time someone likes your post. And so there's this false sense too that, well, like, you know, this person has this many followers, and look at their post got 100 likes and only 4 people liked mine. So there's actually a chemical reaction that's happening every time we're seeing a like on our post.
It takes such maturity to step away from someone's vacation to Aruba.
Yes.
And be happy for them rather than go, I'm not.
What's wrong with me in my life?
And if you can't do it, how is your 15 and 14 and 16-year-old supposed to?
Exactly my point. And so I think first and foremost, I think it's important to acknowledge that we all can get trapped by the self-awareness, lack of self-awareness, and the comparisons that your guests were talking about. But even as an adult, I have some life experience to know, oh wait, I've learned that that's not always the full story in someone's life. So but a teenager doesn't have that.
Obviously acknowledging this and being aware of the issues themselves is the first step to helping solve the problem. But what are some takeaways for parents? What do you advise you to do in your own home?
Yeah, so I think one thing is admit to your children if you're seeing a problem where they're withdrawing, they're not connecting, you're not having conversations that are face-to-face, that you say, listen, this is something I'm always aware in my own life, and I'm not always great at it, but as your parent, my job is to make sure you're provided for and safe. And so why don't we start with maybe certain times of day that we're digital free? So maybe you start just with dinner time, that all of the phones go in a basket, and you have a practice conversation where you're like looking at each other and you're seeing each other face to face, and it's not a scroll conversation, it's a face-to-face conversation. And in our home, phones go away for bedtime. And even for me, I put mine in my closet where I have a plug, because I don't want it right by my bed all night long. So I think that's also an important thing, that as an adult, sometimes I hear from parents that say, oh my gosh, they're going to throw a fit if we say, no, we can't have our phones right now. Who's paying the phone bill? That's what I would just say. Who's paying the phone bill? And create those kind of, if you have a child that's in a really high risk, they're already dealing with some suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, I say get pretty clear fast, and that may mean a dumb phone for a time, so that their brain and their heart and their mind can have a break, so that you can kind of step in with some other interventions. I think there's no problem saying as a parent, you know, just like when you have the flu, we're staying home.
Right.
For this period of time, we're not having
Did you
the phone.
say dumb phone? What
Dumb
is that?
phone.
Just
Like
doesn't
a brick
have all the
phone?
apps.
Not-
It doesn't
not
have
a
all
smartphone.
the
Oh, I
Google.
get it. A dumb
Yeah,
phone.
yeah.
Okay.
I do love the takeaway from those kids, though. Parents, they want you to ask.
Yes.
They go like this, but they're really doing this. I need attention. I need you to ask me how I'm doing.
And I've said this so many times on the show. Ask someone how support looks. So ask your child, what would it look like to support you? Are you noticing a difference when you don't have your phone? Is there a way in which I can support you with some of your anxiety and depression? See what your kids say to you, and then teach them and remind them that likes on Facebook or on Instagram, I know Facebook's for old people, it does not mean that they're belonging to anyone, that they belong in your family, that they belong and they're loved right now, wherever their grades are at, whatever sports they're not doing, they're loved right now.
Such a good reminder. GainaLynn.com, everybody, for more information. Thank you for being
I
here.
love you.
For the
Thanks
show
for
today.
having
Up
this
next,
conversation.
we're going to sweeten it up just a little bit. Crumbl is here showing us perfect cookies, Bri.
That they are, and still